Welcome everybody, and here's Friday live at 5 on Wednesday at 5. So I wanted to revisit this week Avignon when I was there in June. Beautiful place. When I was there, we painted from this location and did the bridge, and that's kind of what do you say? Exactly what you would expect. I think I'd like to paint the castle here, or the ex-papal palace proper, because it makes a wonderful shape, and kind of the, what would you say, the theme today is what really matters, what makes a good shape, what do we want to paint. So first thing I want to do is I'm gonna pop this bottle of Chateauneuf du Pape. It's a wine that is produced in this area. It's called that because the popes in 1300, I think like 1309, Clement V moved the papacy to Avignon, and he apparently liked Burgundy, and I guess Burgundy was right up the river on the Rhone River from there, but it was his successor, John the 22nd, who organized or started this vineyard here, built a little castle there, and that's what Chateauneuf du Pape means. It means the new castle of the Pope. So we're going to, I popped this bottle open, I'm gonna pour a glass, and I'm gonna let it set aside while we paint because I want it to breathe. And look at that, yeah. So it's probably a typical Rhone blend of Grenache, Syrah, and Mourvèdre. Might be some Sancerre or Roussanne in there, but it's this is not a single estate. Chateauneuf du Pape. It's a what do they call it? A négociance. It's several growers get together from that appellation or from that area, and they combine their grapes. So I'm not in the tax bracket that can afford single estate Chateauneuf du Pape. This is a we'll see. Let's have a sniff. Yeah, okay, it's definitely not winking out. All right, so when we look at a subject like this, what should we see? And what is our decision with regards to what is it we're trying to paint? What are we trying to convey? For me, it's the light on that particular day in June and this lovely shape. And we should see a shape. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to try and demonstrate what I think one should see, whether one wants to go into an extreme amount of detail or not. I don't want to go into a lot of detail. So I am mixing a very strong mix of my blues and my burnt sienna here. And what we should be seeing is something that is a shape that is tapering towards the right. We want to see all this along with its reflection in the river, the Rhone there. We want to see this little up, down, in, out, stop and go of these reds and stuff. So I am going to say, here's our Rhone. we should first see Virgin Mary, what the heck? We should see a big shape that looks like this. Just a big dark shape. And I always look for these backlit scenes which give me a beautiful silhouette. Now let's go. There's trees in here, there's buildings in here. Let's a little more blue, a little more burnt sienna. Because to my mind, I'm not interested in a bunch of buses loaded with Asian tourists. I'm interested in this gorgeous shape, this amazing silhouette. It tells me something about the land, but maybe more than that, the light falling on that land. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff down here, little bits and this and that. And hi, Kathy. So I want to see this gigantic shape. I want to see this big shape. Because even if I was interested in getting all these little buses and cars and all that stuff like that, I would still have to see this big shape and get that right, because this, at the risk of sounding like Bob Ross, is where all that stuff lives. Now, there's underneath this is the actual painting we're going to do. And let's say we're going to do our reflections. So we're going to allow for that. Let's get some of that brown in there. Always put your reflection under the thing that's causing it. Avoid going outside of those boundaries. And in very, very short order, we're getting something that looks like our scene. And what did that take? A couple, 3 seconds. But this is what we need to see when we're trying to come up with a little more detail of this kind of thing. So now we're going to go to the actual painting itself. And the Chateau Neuf de Pape is breathing. Now, I'm not above taking something to help me make a straight line, because I always think that the important thing with water is to make sure that that backmost line, that horizontal, is dead flat. Or if it's a curved surface like a river, like if you were looking upriver, notice that that bit, this is on a slight angle because we're looking that way. But this, at the farthest part from us, needs to be dead flat. Hello, Jen. So, I'm going to say I got more here, less there. I'm a little below half. That would be there, there. I'm going to put my, and Ginger the cat wants to go out. Ginger, you're going to have to amuse yourself while I'm working on this painting. Okay. That's you probably can't even see that, doggone it. But I'm going to use that as well. Now, at about so that's my key horizontal. I'm always looking for that armature of the horizontal and vertical that I can pin or put the flesh on the body of this thing that I'm trying to paint. So, okay, there. So it's down, up, down a little bit, and then over. And this is over here about what? It's about a third. So that's there. That comes up. This is in here. And then it's position. It's always so important, and I'm going to draw this in more as soon as I find my position. Hi, Jane. How are you? Thank you for sending me Jessica's message to know when we pick up our paintings. Jane and I were painting in Burlington a couple weeks ago at their plein air event. So, lovely statue up here of the Virgin. Always remember, whatever scale you're working at, if you are at a scale that is appropriate to show the detail of something or not. Your detail is determined by the scale that you're working. Now, I look at these things. Is this above that? Is this, that of course is above that, but where does this come in relation to that? So, and we walked all around that area down there. It was pretty neat. And there was an Italian artist. Oh yes, I love the reflections here. Major river, the Rhone. You know, it's right up there with the Nile and the Mississippi, vis-a-vis its importance to history and I like rivers, having come from growing up on all three coasts. I miss significant bodies of water. Now, within this, let's get the whole thing. There are key places. And I'm going to kind of try and mimic the line there, hand drawing of that line. There is a turret of some sort here. And I say, okay, this is here, that's there, this is way over. It's a little bit to the left of this gizmo here, which I might need to make a bit bigger. So it's about yay. We look for the rectangles. We look for is it a tall rectangle? Is it a square? What the heck is it? We just look for the basic geometry of these shapes. And there's a tall one in there. It's a little bit to the left of this thing, but it's not quite as tall as this one. This is going to help me find those. There was a lovely wide turret, cylindrical place over here. But again, my chief aim is to get a sense of, and we have foliage growing along the bank there. let's see, to about a little bit past here. So I'm darkening up my and here we go. I think we're almost there. And we can begin painting. Pile of foliage there, that's an important one. The roads in here. There's a wall that surrounds this entire town. And it was very imposing with the different castellated situations. There's some kind of gateway in there. But again, I'm saying I'm trying not to be. It's not like I'm scoping out these buildings to blow them up or something. I just want to get a sense of the light of the day. Let's get the whole thing in there. There we go. So my indication of buses and cars and whatnot on the road there is going to be done by virtue of leaving little skips. So let's get this line relatively straight. And then we have to make the decision about that area, that area, and that area. I'm always talking about that big three. The plane of the sky, the plane of the earth, and the plane of things that are sticking vertically up out of the earth. So usually one of those is going to be a medium value, one of them is going to be a light value, one of them is going to be a dark value. More often than not, that vertical one sticking out of the ground, as it's doing here, is the dark one. We have to make the decision which of these two are darker. They're doggone near equal, and you run into that a lot. But if you paint it that way, what's going to happen is you're going to get a situation where it flattens out because this and that are too much of the same kind of thing. So I'm just noticing here I need to come down on this. It's not slanty enough, so maybe all of this needs to be smaller. Yeah, that's better for me. And just for reference, I'm working on Hanamula 140-pound cold press. Could just as easily be anybody's cold press. That's not the thing. Okay. So the decision I'm going to make whenever I run into this situation where the water and the sky are nearly the same, I will typically make two things. One, I will make one of them a more purplish blue, the other one a more greenish blue. And then the other thing I'll do is I'll make one just a little bit darker than the other. Typically, I'll make the water darker because it's reflecting the zenith of the sky, which is outside of the painting here. So it would technically be a little darker if we could see further down here, closer to our bank. And there's a kind of a creamy greenish color there. So I'm going to get into my bigger brush, the big mop, get him wet. Well, no, let's get the medium-sized one. That's going to be big enough. Now, one of the things I'm going to do is those light roofs. I'm going to put them in now, and I'm going to do them in a sort of an orange. Ooh, that's maybe not that much orange. Hi, Diane. And a little bit of cad red and a fair amount of water, because I want them to be, and they're going to look dark now, right? Because we're up against a white piece of paper. But what happens is when all these darker shapes go in, they're going to look all right. They're actually going to look white, and I might even have to end up making some of them darker. You never know. So we're just going to leave that with that. And I'm doing that now so I can go in later with the other things. Now, the next thing, I am going to mix a blue, which is sort of purplish. That means, let's get some ultramarine. And then I'm going to, well, no, I want a greenish blue, so I better go with my cobalt or my cerulean. And a lot of water. It's not terribly dark. A runny mix. And I'm going to have ready to go some yellow ochre, very runny, over here. Because I'm going to change from the blue to the yellow ochre. And if some of it gets into these buildings, that's not a biggie because they're darker and we can paint over them, right? Then when we go down here, we're going to have to, we've got a stopping point which helps us out. In fact, let's just get a little bit of yellow and some yellow ochre and a little bit of some, I don't know, pale blue like the cerulean or the turquoise. Maybe a little more of the yellow ochre. And let's just get our, and again, this is going to seem, whoa, that's too much. But we're looking at a white piece of paper. So it's going to seem darker than it actually is. So I'm switching to yellow-green over here, yellow ochre over there. All right. So our blue, load the brush from the side, not from the tip. Get it fully loaded. Pull it sideways, get a bead going. Come up underneath the bead, catch it, walk it down. Now here's where I'm rinsing this brush, blotting it, and I'm going to start going to that yellow ochre, because I want this to sort of pale out. And I'm painting right over those buildings. I don't mind, because all those shapes are going to be darker. I'll take them right down to these reds, which are almost dry now. Okay. That's going to drizzle. And for those who, I should mention that this board is on a 45-degree angle, if you could see it from the side. So now I'm going to make this blue a little more purplish than that blue. So into that a little bit, and a little bit darker. So more of the ultramarine and a bit of the alizarin to get a kind of a purplish maybe more than I'm actually seeing, but I'm going to exaggerate the difference to create the space. So that looks dark, but and maybe I'll lighten it up towards the front by adding a little bit of water to it. Now this, of course, we're going to have to let dry. One could even leave a few white sparkles in there if one wanted. Let's get rid of that big brush. I guess we never really needed it. Okay, yeah, let's give that a dry. And I don't like to use a hairdryer. Whoops, earthquake. Sorry about that. Okay, here we go. I'm going to mute us so you don't have to listen to this. Okay, I think it's sufficiently dry to at least work with. And let's have a sniff of our yeah, I think it's developing a bit. Okay, where are we going from here? Well, basically, I'm going to stay above the water line and get that accomplished, and then I'm going to do the reflections. So I need to come up with two kinds of colors. And I'm going to use, I think I'm going to use the Oriental brush, the bigger one. Let's compare it in size to the, it's about the same size, but it holds less paint. Or maybe I could even go to the one I previously used. Yeah, let's do that. No, I want the Oriental. Okay, so I need something that's darker than this, darker than that, bluish, grayish. So I've got some blue here. Let's just work off of that. And let's put a little bit of, lavender. Blues, various blues, and a little bit of something to dirty them up, like the sienna, but not too much. So this is going to be slower moving paint. So it doesn't matter which blue, it matters how dark you make the blue, and that's a case where you are, it's the blue of your choice. It's how much water you put in it and how much other color like the burnt sienna or something else to make it a little more. I'm going to do a tester over here. Yeah, that's about what I'm wanting. And I probably, yeah, John, make a bunch of it. Got a lot of real estate to cover there. Okay. up here, I'm going into the bigger parts of the shape to exhaust the brush, and then I'm going to pull down to, that's a little bit darker than I want, so I get some water. And then I pull into the parts of the shape which are more specific. As there's less paint on the brush then. So that helps me out. Now, let's modify it as we go. Let's put a little more reddishness in it, a little more lavender, a little more water. Don't want it to be the same everywhere. And one of the reasons, the reason I picked this Oriental brush is because I think you can see here, it forms a flat tip, which is useful, at least I think so, for this sort of thing. When I need a straight kind of architectural shape, it comes and helps me out. Now, as I get down here towards these roofs, I'm going to do a dit dot. There's some trees in there, and I'm going to mix in a little bit more of the sienna and maybe a little bit more of the alizarin. I'm still a grayish blue, and a bit more of the water. And if I look at these shapes, they tend to be geometrics. So it's horizontal lines, vertical lines, slightly, ever so slightly sometimes. Oh, what would you say? Diagonals? Triangulated shapes? Now, I have a stopping point here at the wall, and I'm in the what would you call it, the castle proper. Well, let's get that turret with the Virgin. Now, black, or neutral tint in this case, and nickel azo yellow, which make a dark, rich green for this foliage over here. And there's foliage throughout. And I want it to mingle with the blue that I have just painted. So I'm going from blue to this dark green to down to the ruddy reddish colors. So possibly you can see that maybe they're not as dark as they looked before. Where does it, oh, there's a bit shows up in here maybe, yeah. And this is, there's a light greens and dark greens, and this is the lighter version of what we're going to see. And there's a big one over here. So that really wants to be dealt with. Now, a little more of that neutral tint and a little bit of the ultramarine blue and possibly a little bit of the red, because we're looking for a deep shadow color in that. Popping it in here while it's damp like that in order to get a soft, distant looking edge, because I'm always thinking about how far am I from this place. I know if I let my eye look at it too closely, my eye is going to adjust for that distance, It's going to see all manner of details. I'm going to see birds in these trees. It's going to be not like grokking this whole scene. And that's what we need to do when we paint, is we need to grok the whole scene. Is that a word? I think there was a time when they said stuff like that. But in other words, it's take in the whole scene. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, more is going to happen in there. That's not the only thing that's going to happen in there. Now I'm going to put a little bit more yellow and a little bit more water into the green that I was doing here. And I'm going to do well, maybe not that much. There's some foliage right at the river's edge. This would be the medium shade of what I'm looking at. Okay, now it's more the black, or the neutral tint, which is not actually black. It's if you look at the side of the tube, it's actually a mixture of quinacridone magenta and phthalo green. So it's a red-green mix. So here, just as I was using a blackish color in there, and I'm just squinting and I'm looking. I squint at this, I ask myself, well, where is that stuff? Where is it dark? Where is it big? Where is it small? Where is it light? And that's what I look for. Okay. I think that's almost, oh, you know what? I'm just going to stab some very dark blue right in this area here. And when I say stab, what I mean is I'm taking paint that is pretty much right out of the pocket. And I am, well, just, I don't know if stabbing is the word we want. I'm putting it into that surface. There's wetness on the surface of the paper, so the edge is not going to be a crisp, hard line or too hard. It's going to, where it meets the wet edge, it's going to blend a bit. And I see some of that over here. The light is coming right over the top. I think this is, let's look at the time stamp. 1:30 in the afternoon. Remember, we just finished lunch and then we went over there. Now, I'm going to dress this wall. I need a bluish, I'm going to get my cerulean and turquoise into this neutral mix. And let's do a tester. Well, a little more of the cerulean, maybe a little bit of alizarin. Do a tester. More blue. It's a purplish blue. Oh, let's get in the lavender then, John. Get in your lavender. Great color, lavender. It's a Holbein color. It's just a mixture of ultramarine blue, ultramarine violet, and titanium white. Hi, Laura. How are you? Now, Laura was there when we did this the first time. I'm hoping this is come out better. I'm going to leave little white skips down here. hopefully that will look like buses or cars or who knows what. Because we are at a distance. We're at quite a distance. So I'm squinting. Where do I see a shape? Where is it dark? Where is it light? It's dark here. This. It's quite interesting to look at those walls. And you can see, well, this is where they probably dumped boiling oil on people who were trying to maybe attack the place. I don't know. So, where it was definitely set up for that situation, were that to become the case. If somebody did try to get in. I'm going to touch in some dark bits up here while that's, because it's a little drier now. To give some dimensionality to that. A little more blue, a little of the green maybe. Big break there. I don't want this many cars. It was crowded that day, I remember that. It was a beautiful town. My goodness. Those cats knew how to live. Mindful of the fact that there were a lot of poor people, yeah, trying to get by during those times. Now over here I want to make a bit more of a transition, so I'm putting some of the darker color in here, and it's still a bit damp because I just worked there. One of the things in watercolors, you always want to be mindful of where was I just working, because that's wet. And if I don't want something to bleed together, I'm not going to paint there. But if I do want something to bleed together, I am going to paint there. So some of the little divisions between the different buildings there, the walls. Pretty soon I'm going to be getting into a smaller brush, I think. Just looking for horizontals and verticals, horizontals and verticals. I think I need to get back into my greens again, so that's the neutral tint and then nickel azo yellow, because there are some trees in there. And this tree line breaks that. Don't actually need something there. You can soften an edge with your fingers too. That's a deal. Get some of this action in here. That comes right to the water's edge, as does that. And I like the way these little things break that long straight line. A long straight line is just a boring thing to look at. So if we can break it up at irregular intervals, that's usually a good thing. Going to get a little bit of some yellow ochre, and I'm going to tease that so that it softens. Now, let's get that smaller brush, this one. Hi, Vicky. And get into our blue, maybe with a little more lavender. And make bits of this a little bit darker or a wee bit lighter. Start to add some architectural detail, but very carefully. Only the stuff that when you squint sticks out. So let's get into a darker version of that. I do need to let this set up a bit. It's a big door here. And this on the whole is darker. So I'm going to let that set like that. And then I'm going to check on our Chateau Neuf pop. Yep, it's blooming. Pretty smooth, not a lot of tannins. Kind of grippy though. Now, before I get too carried away up here, oops, he says he finds something to get carried away about. I'm looking at the left side of some of these buildings. Oops. Because the light is slightly more to the right, the sun, than straight ahead. So I'm going to try and indicate that. Let's get that door. There's a tall cypress there or something. Who knows? Oops, be careful I don't make these spacings here disco beat. I need them to be irregular. Reflections. Now, what we've got here, I'm going to say constitutes these lighter blues. And what I need to put in is this grayish green kind of thing. But before I do that, I think I'm going to get into something reddish or sienna-ish and modify some of these terracotta roofs and things of that nature. So it looks like a little more variegation, if that's a word. And then I think I need like a left side of that. And being very careful here. I don't want to get too carried away with this. All right. Back to the bigger brush, which in this instance I think I'm going to make the Oriental brush. Some reflections. Let's, into this pile that we've been using for the darker gray here, add some green. Now why am I'm not mixing this up just for mush. It's, if you squint, the value of that and the value of that really quite similar. So that's why we're going to want to just modify this, which is already that value, and make it a little greener. Which, let's put some yellow ochre in it. Let's put a little more blue in it. We need a grayish, bluish green. Maybe get a little bit of burnt sienna in there. It might be sort of Mississippi-ish. Not like the Rhone, maybe. Okay, now, I can pull across here. And get a main line. But then I have to come down. Don't stray too far from your, where the shape is. Drop a plumb line so that you know where you're at. In there. Now we know we got a big one here. And water to make the lighter version of what's going on here. Maybe some darker paint. Let me show you what you're getting, the darker paint. Loading the top. Maybe I'll even get some black and some green. And up here, where the still water on the surface, the reflection will typically be darker in that area. And as we go down, it'll be a little less so. So let's neutral tint and stuff like that. Oh yeah, we are green over here. We need to be green. This needs to be green. As long as there's water on the surface, you can put a similar consistency paint into what you have just painted, and it will melt together. We've got should be an analog for that. Should be an analog for this. Maybe an analog for that. And let's have a line come through there. Oh, look at that. And something like that happens, don't freak out. Be an oyster. Make a pearl out of it. Find a way to pass it off as something else. Now, we can rinse that brush. Well, look at this. I think this needs to go all the way off the page. Doesn't quite yet. So that's going to be a piece of flotsam and jetsam. Because that stuff happens, right? Take some of that, put it in here. let's rinse that brush, squeeze it out, and pull through here, make a line, or soften that. Take it all the way to the bottom. I kind of like when I take a reflection all the way to the edge of the painting, either at the top or the bottom, but not both. Again, rinse, squeeze. Let's pull out something like that. This works because there's still water on the surface. Can soften an edge, make lines connect with one another. Now, I think the safe thing to do is leave that alone and just let it be. And then find some places up here to do something very sparingly. I see a very dark tree here. And I like that because it kind of brings our attention in and around that, which I'm looking at and saying, I think that's kind of the focal area, center of gravity for this. Oh my goodness, let's see, where else can we play around? Some of that blue-brown mix. Blues and browns, my gosh, it's like two things that you can make into so many different neutral colors. I'm looking for places where there's, miscellaneous darks and lights and horizontals and verticals. So, the places where they poured the boiling oil on the unsuspecting siege people. See that? Because that's wet, when I stick that in there, it just sort of melts. If I waited a little bit later, it would be a very distinct mark. If I went in too early, it would just totally blend in. Hi, Michael. Now I'm looking at the painting and not the picture. I'm saying there's too many little white things happening over here, so I'm going to tint them because they should be in shade. And I'm using the lavender as a sort of what would I call it? A color that tames things or ties them down. So I'm looking into these areas for these places like this. Obviously, there's hundreds more things than you would typically want to paint at this scale. If you were painting a large painting, yeah, you could get in there and you could have some fun with that kind of thing. And So I'm looking at this, is there any areas that are a little too sparkly? And I think at this stage, I am going to detape and see if it tells me anything. But the thing I really wanted to get across today, well, let's look at, shoot, I think it'd be nice to have a little bit of relief in here. And hopefully, let's see if there's an, oh yeah. There's still enough. The only reason I can do that, lift that out, I rinse the brush, squeeze it, and lift this out, is because that area, the water has soaked below the surface. The paint on top is not yet dry. And I'm lifting that not yet dry paint off. Now over here it's a little drier, so I can't get away with that. Have to be so mindful of the condition of the paper and the consistency of the paint that you're bringing to it. And, well, yeah, let's see. I do see there's some little tree action up here. Maybe even a bit. I don't know if there is one there, but I'm going to put one there. Okay. And it wants a bird, as far as I'm concerned. So a very pale. Ooh, wait a minute. No, let's get some of this blue. Make some separation there. Separation there. But I want a bird. Now. Yeah. Okay. Enough Boyd. Oh, look at that. Green splatter. Who knows? So, to recap, we want to do, where did I put that other board? The first thing I did, is it underneath? Is it on top? What did I do with that? See that big shape? Like a Rorschach blot. I can't believe I could lose that in a 13 by 13 room. Here it is. Doggone it. Hi, Martha. So what I want to do is I want to see a big shape like this. And then just even to rehearse that in ink or do it with a 6B pencil. That's a great way to kind of get yourself halfway into a painting without getting in too far and white knuckling it. Then, having done that, you're sort of loosened up and feeling, okay, I kind of know where I'm going. So you can do that. And then you just, from there on out, you add little bits and pieces and look out for stuff that don't make intervals that are too equal, even if they are. Horizontals and verticals, horizontals and verticals. That's all it boils down to. They're man-made buildings. They're going to have horizontals and verticals. This should not be light. We'll tint it. Okay, that's the idea. Now, so we're doing this on YouTube, Facebook, and they only keep these things up for a month. And I am working on setting up a YouTube channel and a website so that these things can go on YouTube and stay up on YouTube, and I can not lose what I've done, and maybe I could even get into teaching a kind of like a syllabus or a sequential organized thing where we start with drawing and then go on to the next thing and composition and then painting and then mixing color and that sort of thing. So I'll keep you posted on that. That's what we're up to now. But until then, Santé, salute, Prost, cheers. Thank you for tuning in. I'm going to be in Louisiana at the Golden Hills Plein Air this weekend. Hope to, if any of you are down that way, run into you. And everybody stay safe, stay sane, and peace out. Bye-bye.